The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with 100 different voices speaking in dozens of alien languages. Representatives from across the known galaxy gathered around the massive circular table that floated in the center of the room. Each species had their own section, their own customs, and their own way of showing displeasure. In the smallest section sat the human delegation, 3 beings that looked almost fragile compared to the towering reptilian Karathi or the massive stone-like Bruthan. The humans wore simple, dark suits and spoke in quiet voices. They had been part of the council for only 3 years, but in that short time, they had become something of a curiosity. Li Wu adjusted his glasses and looked across the table at the Karathi representative who was speaking. The reptilian being stood nearly 8 feet tall, with scales that gleamed green and gold under the chamber lights. His voice was a deep hiss that filled the room as he spoke about expanding Karathi territory into what humans call the Outer Rim. The sector contains 17 systems with valuable mining resources, the Karathi said, his forked tongue flicking out between words. These systems are currently unused by any major power. The Karathi claimed them by right of discovery. Park Hannah, the human trade representative, leaned forward slightly. Her voice was soft but clear when she spoke. Those systems are home to 12 human colonies. For 4 million people live there. They have been farming and mining those worlds for 20 years. Fa, the Karathi representative, whose name was difficult for humans to pronounce, but sounded like a long hiss, turned his yellow eyes toward the human section. Humans are not a major power. Your people are few and weak. You have no military to speak of. These claims are not valid. Around the table, other species made sounds of agreement. The crystalline Nexari chimed like broken glass, cloned. Ethereals whispered in their strange way. Even the usually neutral Centauri nodded their many heads. Kim Jun, the lead human ambassador, stood slowly. He was a man of average height, with graying hair and kind eyes. When he spoke, his voice carried no anger or threat. Instead, he sounded almost sad. "We understand your position," Kim Jun said, "but those are our people, our families, our children. They have built homes and communities on those worlds. They have turned empty planets into places where life can grow and thrive." The Karathi representative made a sound that might have been laughter. "Then they can leave, find other worlds. The galaxy is vast." "With respect," Kim Jun said, "we must ask you to reconsider. Those people cannot simply be moved. They have roots there, lives there. We would be willing to discuss sharing the resources or finding other systems that might meet your needs." The chamber erupted in noise. Several species spoke at once, their voices mixing into a chaos of sound. The Bruthan representative, a being that looked like a walking mountain, slammed one massive fist on the table. "Humans always talk," the Bruthan said in a voice like grinding stone. "Always negotiate, always ask for compromise. But what do you offer? What strength do you bring to make your words mean something?" June looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each representative. Some looked back with curiosity, others with contempt, and a few with what might have been pity. "We offer friendship," Kim Jun said. "We offer trade and cooperation. We offer the chance to build something better than what we have had before." The Karathi representative hissed again. "Pretty words, okay? But words without strength are just noise. The strong take what they need. The weak give way." Park Hannah stood beside Kim Jun. "We understand that you see us as weak. Perhaps, by your standards, we are. But we have something to say about this situation." She paused, and the chamber grew slightly quieter. Even the species that had been talking among themselves turned to listen. "We have been part of this council for 3 years," Park Hannah continued. "In that time, we have watched how things work. Here, we have seen how disputes are settled. We have learned your ways and tried to follow them. Li Wu stood as well, completing the human delegation. We have accepted unfair trade agreements. We have given up territory we rightfully claimed. We have paid fees and taxes that other species do not pay. We have done all of this because we wanted to be part of this community. The Nexari representative, a being that looked like a living crystal sculpture, made a sound like wind chimes. Then you understand how the galaxy works. The strong lead, the weak follow. This is natural law. Kim Jun nodded slowly. We understand. But we have tried to show you another way. We have tried to demonstrate that cooperation can be stronger than domination, that working together can benefit everyone. And yet, the Korathi representative said, you still have no power to enforce your wishes. You still cannot make anyone listen to your pretty words. The chamber fell silent. This was the heart of every dispute involving humans. They spoke well, they negotiated fairly, they offered reasonable compromises. But when push came to shove, they had no way to make their positions stick. Kim Jun looked around the chamber one more time. His expression was sad, almost disappointed. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, but somehow carried to every corner of the room. You are right. We are not strong in the way you understand strength. We do not have vast fleets or powerful armies. We do not rule through fear or conquest. We have chosen a different path. It paused, and in that pause, something changed in his expression. The sadness remained, but underneath it was something else. Something that made a few of the older, wiser species shift uncomfortably in their seats. But we must ask you one more time, Kim Jun said. Okay, please reconsider your position on the Outer Rim colonies. Please think about the lives that will be disrupted. Please remember that those are real people with real families who will suffer if you proceed. The Korathi representative made a dismissive gesture. We have made our decision. The colonies will be relocated or removed. This is final. Kim Jun closed his eyes for a moment, as if gathering strength. When he opened them, he looked directly at the Korathi representative. Then we have one final request, Kim Jun said. His voice was still quiet, still sad, but now there was something else in it, something that made the chamber grow very still. Please, don't make us mad. The words hung in the air like a challenge, but they didn't sound like one. They sounded like a warning, or perhaps like a plea. The Korathi representative stared at Kim Jun for a long moment, then threw back his head and made the hissing sound that was Korathi laughter. Around the chamber, other species joined in with their own versions of amusement. Mad, the Korathi said. What will you do if you become mad? Write strongly worded letters, file complaints with the council, threaten to stop trading with us. Kim Jun said nothing. He simply stood there, looking sad and tired, and somehow very alone. The Bruthan representative's voice rumbled through the chamber. Humans are amusing. They think their emotions matter to the rest of us. They think their anger has meaning. It is almost touching, the Nexari chimed, like children threatening to hold their breath until they get their way. Kim Jun gathered his papers and prepared to leave. As he did, he spoke one more time, his voice barely above a whisper. Please don't make us mad. The laughter in the chamber grew louder as the human delegation walked out. None of the other species noticed that some of the oldest members of the council, representatives from races that had seen the rise and fall of empires, were not laughing. They were remembering old stories, old warnings, old legends about species that seemed gentle until they were pushed too far. And they were wondering if the galaxy was about to learn a lesson that it might not survive. But their voices were lost in the laughter, and their concerns were dismissed as the fears of the elderly. The council had made its decision. The outer rim colonies would be cleared. And the humans would learn their place in the galactic order. After all, what could such a weak species possibly do when they got mad. The morning sun rose over New Busan like it had for 20 years, painting the wheat fields golden and warming the faces of the farmers who worked them. Yoon-soo stood on her porch, watching her 5-year-old daughter, Han-na, chase butterflies through the garden. The little girl's laughter filled the air as she ran between the rows of vegetables they had planted together. New Busan was everything humans had hoped for when they first left Earth. The planet had clean air, fertile soil, and enough space for everyone to build the life they wanted. 2 million people called it home now. They had built cities and farms, schools and hospitals. They had created a world where children could grow up safe and happy. Yoon-soo had been born on New Busan. Her parents were among the first settlers, brave enough to leave everything they knew behind for a chance at something better. She had met her husband here, raised her daughter here, and planned to grow old here. This was home in every way that mattered. Look, Han-na called out, holding up a bright blue flower. It's pretty. Very pretty, Yoon-soo agreed, smiling at her daughter's excitement. But be careful not to pick too many. We want them to keep growing. The sound of approaching aircraft made Yoon-soo look up. Military ships often flew over the colony, but these looked different, bigger, more threatening. She counted 12 of them, flying in formation toward the main city. Park Min was working in the fields when the first ships appeared. As the head of the Colonial Defense Force, he knew immediately that something was wrong. The ships were not human design, They were Korathi vessels, and they were coming in fast and low. He grabbed his radio and called the command center. This is Park Min. We have 12 unknown vessels approaching the capital. They appear to be Korathi military ships. The response came back within seconds. Confirmed. We're tracking them on our sensors. They're not responding to communications. Park Min felt his stomach drop. Right, the Korathi had made their threats in the council chambers, but everyone thought they were just posturing. No one believed they would actually attack a civilian colony. All units, this is command, came the voice over the radio. We are going to yellow alert. All civilians should move to safe areas immediately. This is not a drill. Park Min started his truck and raced toward the city. Behind him, he could see the Korathi ships beginning to circle the main population centers. Whatever was about to happen, it was going to happen fast. In the capital city of New Seoul, the emergency sirens began to wail. People stopped what they were doing and looked up at the sky. The Korathi ships were now visible to everyone, dark shapes against the morning sky that seemed to grow larger by the minute. Mayor Cho Young stood in the emergency command center, watching the tactical display. The 12 ships had been joined by more vessels, and they were taking positions around all the major cities and towns. What are they doing? Asked his aide, a young man named Jung Ho, who had never seen anything like this before. I don't know, Mayor Cho replied. But we need to get people to safety. Send out the evacuation orders for all non-essential areas. The first message from the Korathi came at exactly 10 in the morning. It was broadcast on all frequencies in perfect human language. Citizens of New Busan, the voice said, cold and mechanical. You are in violation of Korathi territorial claims. You have 30 minutes to begin evacuation procedures. Any resistance will be met with force. Mayor Cho grabbed the radio transmitter. This is Mayor Cho Young of New Seoul. This planet is a recognized human colony. We have legal claim to this system. You have no right to make demands. The response was immediate. Legal claims require the power to enforce them. You have no power. Evacuation begins now. Park Min reached the city just as the first explosions shook the ground. The Korathi were not targeting civilian areas yet, but they were destroying communication, towers, and power plants. The message was clear. They could hit anything they wanted, whenever they wanted. All defense units, report to stations. Parkmen ordered over the radio, "We're going to full alert." The human defense force on New Busan was small. They had never expected to face a real military attack. Their ships were mostly converted cargo vessels with light weapons. Their ground forces were volunteers who trained on weekends. Against 12 Karathi warships, they were completely outmatched. But they were going to fight anyway. Yoon-soo heard the explosions and immediately called for her daughter. "Hana, come inside right now." The little girl ran to her mother, no longer laughing. The butterflies were forgotten as fear replaced joy in her eyes. "Mom, what's happening? Tae, why are there loud noises?" "I don't know, baby," Yoon-soo said, holding her daughter close. "But we need to go to the safe room, okay? Like we practiced in the drills." Every house on New Busan had a safe room built into the basement with thick walls and emergency supplies. The colonists had built them, hoping they would never be needed. Now Yoon-soo was grateful for her parents' careful planning. She gathered emergency supplies and led Hana down to the basement. Through the small window, she could see smoke rising from the direction of the city. The booming sounds were getting closer and more frequent. The battle for New Busan lasted 6 hours. Parkman and his defenders fought with everything they had, but it was hopeless from the start. The Karathi ships were faster, stronger, and better armed. Every time the humans tried to fight back, they were crushed. "Sir," came a voice over the radio, "we've lost contact with the orbital defense platform. The Karathi ships are moving into bombardment position." Parkman closed his eyes. He knew what that meant. The Karathi were done playing games. They were going to start targeting civilian areas. "All units fall back to the cities," he ordered. "We need to protect the evacuation sites." But there was nowhere to fall back to. Of course, the Karathi had surrounded everything. The evacuation ships that had tried to leave were either destroyed or turned back. The people of New Busan were trapped. At 2 in the afternoon, the orbital bombardment began. Yoon-soo was reading a story to Han-na when the first beam of energy struck their neighborhood. The house shook so violently that books fell from the shelves. The lights went out, and the air filled with dust and smoke. "Mom, I'm scared," Han-na whispered. "I know, baby," Yoon-soo said, pulling her daughter even closer. "We're going to be okay. We're going to be brave." The bombardment continued for hours. The Karathi were not trying to conquer New Busan. They were trying to destroy it. Block by block, building by building. They were erasing 20 years of human civilization. Parkman made his last radio transmission at sunset. "This is Parkman. To any human ships in the area, New Busan is lost. Repeat, New Busan is lost. The Karathi have destroyed our cities. Millions of civilians are dead or missing. Tell Earth what happened here. Tell them we fought to the end." The radio went silent after that. When the rescue ships finally arrived 3 days later, they found a world that had been burned from space. The golden wheat fields were black ash. Cities were rubble. Schools and hospitals were gone. The 2 million people who had called New Busan home, fewer than 50,000 had survived. They were found in scattered groups, hiding in basements and caves, mourning their dead and the lost world. Yoon-soo and Han-na were among the survivors, pulled from the ruins of their safe room by rescue workers. But the little girl no longer laughed, and the butterflies no longer came to what had once been their garden. The news of New Busan reached the Galactic Council within hours. Kim Jun stood in the emergency session, looking at the reports and images from the destroyed world. His face was pale, his hands shaking slightly as he read the casualty numbers. The Karathi representative, the same one who had dismissed human concerns just weeks before, stood to address the chamber. The Karathi actions on New Busan were necessary enforcement of territorial claims. The humans were warned. They chose not to comply. The chamber was quieter than usual. Even the species that had laughed at humanity's warnings seemed uncomfortable with what had happened. 2 million civilians dead was a large number, even by galactic standards. Kim Jun stood slowly. His voice was steady, but there was something different about it. Something that made the entire chamber pay attention. For 3 years, we have sat in this chamber and tried to work within your system. We have accepted unfair treatment. We have compromised on every issue. We have given ground on every dispute. He paused, and in that pause, the chamber grew absolutely silent. We did this because we believed in the possibility of peace. We believed that reasonable beings could find reasonable solutions to their problems. We believed that civilization meant more than the strong taking from the weak. The Karathi representative started to speak, but Kim Jun continued. For 3 years, we have warned you. We have said, over and over, please don't make us mad. We said this not because we are weak, but because we know what happens when we become angry. Okay? We know what we are capable of when pushed too far. Kim Jun activated a holographic display showing the destruction of New Busan. The images were devastating. Burning cities, fleeing civilians, children crying in the ruins of their homes. You have killed 2 million of our people. You have destroyed a world that took 20 years to build. You have made mothers watch their children die and children lose their parents forever. The message reached every human colony, every human ship, and every human outpost in the galaxy at the same time. It was simple, direct, and sent on channels that most species didn't even know existed. New Busan has fallen. 2 million civilians are dead. The Karathi have crossed the line. Operation Sleeping Dragon is now active. All units report to stations immediately. On the mining station orbiting Jupiter, workers stopped what they were doing and looked at each other with grim faces. The message had come through on frequencies they had hoped never to hear. Frequencies that had been silent for 30 years. Station Commander Lee Jun pressed his hand to a scanner that had been built into his desk. The scanner had been there since the day the station was built, but he had never used it. Now it glowed green, recognizing his genetic signature and activating systems that had been hidden for decades. All personnel to emergency stations, Lee Jun announced over the station speakers. This is not a drill. Pete, this is not a drill. The workers moved quickly, but calmly. They had all been trained for this moment, though most had hoped it would never come. Hidden panels opened in the walls, revealing equipment that looked nothing like mining tools. The station began to transform. Similar transformations were happening all across human space. On Mars, the agricultural domes retracted to reveal massive weapon arrays. On Europa, the ice mining facilities opened to show shipyards that had been building in secret for 30 years. On Titan, the research stations activated defensive systems that could protect the entire solar system. But the most dramatic change was happening in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. What had appeared to be a normal mining operation was revealing itself to be something far more significant. Admiral Song Mi stood on the bridge of the battleship Sejong the Great as it emerged from the asteroid that had hidden it for 3 decades. The ship was massive, larger than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Its hull was black as space itself, covered in armor that could withstand the explosion of a small star. Status report, Song Mi ordered. All systems operational, replied her executive officer, Captain Nam Du. Weapon systems are online. Stealth systems are functional. The ship is ready for combat. Song Mi nodded, looking at the tactical display. That showed the positions of ships throughout the solar system. The Sejong the Great was not alone. Dozens of other vessels were emerging from their hiding places, each one a masterpiece of human engineering and 30 years of careful planning. Communications. Send a message to all fleet commanders, Songmi said. Tell them the dragon is awake. The human fleet that assembled over the next 6 hours was unlike anything the galaxy had ever imagined. The ships were not just larger and more powerful than anything humans had shown before. They were built using technology that no other species possessed. The humans had spent 30 years studying every alien ship design. Every weapon system, every defensive measure used by other species. They had learned the weaknesses of every major power in the galaxy. And they had built their fleet specifically to exploit those weaknesses. Captain O'Heen commanded the stealth destroyer Turtle Ship, one of 50 vessels designed to be completely invisible to alien sensors. His ship could move through space without being detected, strike without warning, and disappear before the enemy could respond. Navigation. Set course for the Karathi home system, O'Heen ordered. Maximum stealth. We're going to pay them a visit. The Turtle Ship and its sister vessels departed from human space using routes that no other species knew existed. The humans had been mapping secret passages through space for decades, finding ways to move their ships without being detected by the sensor networks that monitored galactic traffic. While the stealth fleet moved toward Karathi space, the main battle fleet prepared for a different kind of mission. Admiral Songmi had received her orders directly from Earth, and they were clear: demonstrate to the galaxy that humanity was not the weak species they had believed. All ships, this is Admiral Songmi, she broadcast to the fleet. 4:30. Years, we have hidden our true strength. We have allowed other species to believe we were weak and helpless. We did this because we hoped for peace. We wanted to be part of a galactic community based on cooperation, not fear. The fleet stretched out in formation, hundreds of ships of different sizes and designs. Battleships that could crack planets, carriers that launched fighter squadrons, cruisers that could outrun anything in space, destroyers that could punch through any defense. Today, that changes, Songmi continued. The Karathi have shown us that the galaxy respects only strength. They have murdered our civilians and destroyed our worlds. They have forced us to reveal what we truly are. The fleet began to move, heading for the neutral zone where Karathi forces were gathering. The aliens had been celebrating their victory, and New Busan, confident that humanity would accept their defeat, and submit to Karathi rule. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The first contact came 18 hours later. A Karathi patrol fleet of 12 ships encountered the human advance force near the border of their territory. The Karathi commander, a veteran warrior named Skak, had fought in dozens of battles and conquered many worlds. Unknown vessels. Skak transmitted, "You are entering Karathi space without permission. Identify yourselves immediately." The response came from Captain O'Hyan aboard the Turtle Ship. Though the Karathi could not see his vessel or determine where the transmission was coming from. "This is Captain O'Hyan of the Human Defense Force. You were ordered to surrender immediately. This is your only warning." Skak and his officers made the hissing sound that was Karathi laughter. "Humans, you have no ships in this sector. Our sensors show nothing. You are trying to trick us with false communications. Your sensors cannot detect our ships," O'Hyan replied calmly. "We have been watching you for the past hour. We know your positions, your weapons, your weaknesses. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to the laws of war." The Karathi response was predictable. Skak ordered his ships to open fire in all directions, hoping to hit whatever human ships might be hidden nearby. The space around them lit up with weapon fire, but they hit nothing. "Humans are cowards," Skak announced to his crew. "They hide and make threats, but cannot fight like warriors." The words were barely out of his mouth when the first Karathi ship exploded. The Turtle Ship had moved to point-blank range without being detected and fired a single torpedo into the patrol vessel's engine core. The explosion was so sudden and complete that the other Karathi ships had no idea what had happened. "What was that?" Skak demanded. "Report," before anyone could answer. 2 more ships exploded in rapid succession. The human stealth ships were moving through the Karathi formation like ghosts, striking without warning and disappearing before return fire could be aimed. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," Skak ordered. "Find these human ships and destroy them." But the Karathi could not fight an enemy they could not see. One by one, their ships were destroyed with surgical precision. The humans targeted engines, first crippling the vessels, then communication systems, then weapons. Only then did they deliver the killing blow. In less than 10 minutes, 11 of the 12 Karathi ships were destroyed. Only Skak's flagship remained, its engines damaged and its weapons offline. The turtle ship materialized directly in front of the Karathi vessel, stealth systems disengaging to reveal a sleek black ship that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Karathi vessel, Ohio, transmitted. You are disabled and helpless. Your crew will be taken prisoner and treated humanely. This is more mercy than you showed our civilians at New Busan." Skak stared at the human ship in shock. It was smaller than his flagship, but it had just destroyed his entire patrol fleet single-handedly. The implications were terrifying. "Impossible," he whispered. "Humans have no such technology. Your species is weak and primitive. We allowed you to believe that," Ohian replied. "We hoped you would never force us to show our true capabilities. You have made a serious mistake." The boarding parties that came aboard the Karathi flagship were unlike any human soldiers the galaxy had ever seen. They wore armor that made them look like mechanical beings, and they moved with precision that seemed almost inhuman. Within minutes, they had secured the ship and captured its crew. Skak found himself in the ship's brig, staring at the human officer who had captured him. Captain Ohayon looked almost ordinary, like any of the diplomatic humans who had sat quietly in the council chambers for 3 years. "You are not what you appear to be," Skak said. "No," Ohayon agreed. "We are not. For 30 years, we have been preparing for the day when someone would push us too far. We built ships and weapons in secret. We trained soldiers and officers in hidden facilities. We developed strategies and tactics specifically designed to defeat every major power in the galaxy." He paused, studying the alien warrior who had seemed so confident just hours before. "We did this not because we wanted war, but because we understood. That peace requires the ability to defend it. We hoped we would never need to use what we built. We hoped the galaxy would choose cooperation over conquest." The Karathi response came exactly 23 hours and 59 minutes after Admiral Song Mi's ultimatum. It was delivered by the Supreme War Leader, Hassak, himself, the most powerful military commander in the Karathi Empire. "It's humans," Hassak's voice hissed across space. "You think your tricks with invisible ships make you strong? You think destroying one patrol fleet makes you warriors? You are wrong. The Karathi Empire has ruled this sector for 300 years. We have conquered dozens of worlds and defeated every enemy that dared to challenge us." The transmission showed massive Karathi battle fleets gathering from across their territory. Thousands of ships, from small fighters to enormous dreadnoughts. It's the largest fleet ever assembled by any single species in galactic history. "We do not surrender to prey animals," Hassak continued. "We do not bow to weak creatures who hide behind technology. Come and face us like true warriors. If you dare, we'll show you why the galaxy fears the Karathi name." Admiral Song Mi listened to the message on the bridge of the Sajong the Great. Around her, the human fleet waited in perfect formation. 300 ships, each one representing 30 years of secret development and preparation. "Communications," Song Mi ordered. "Send a message to all human forces. The Karathi have chosen war. Begin phase 2 of Sleeping Dragon immediately." The orders went out instantly, reaching human ships positioned throughout Karathi space. For the past 24 hours, while the galaxy watched the main fleet, dozens of smaller human vessels had been moving into position using the secret routes that only humanity knew. Colonel Bay's son received his orders aboard the assault transport Han River as it approached the Karathi military shipyard at Keystar. The shipyard was one of the most heavily defended installations in Karathi space, protected by both orbital platforms and a full defense fleet. All units, this is Colonel Bay, he announced to his strike force. Our mission is to disable the shipyard without destroying it. We want to capture their construction facilities intact. Civilian casualties are to be avoided at all costs. The assault began at dawn, Karathi time. The human ships dropped out of stealth mode simultaneously around a dozen different targets. The Karathi defenders had been expecting an attack on their main fleet, not surgical strikes against their infrastructure at the Keystar shipyard. The battle was over in 30 minutes. The human ships used weapons that the Karathi had never seen before. Instead of trying to destroy the enemy vessels, the humans used special electromagnetic pulses that shut down Karathi ship systems without causing explosions. One by one, the defending ships found their engines dead, their weapons offline, their life support systems failing. They were forced to surrender or suffocate in their own vessels. Karathi defenders, Colonel Bay transmitted, "Your ships are disabled, but your crews are safe. Prepare to be boarded. Anyone who cooperates will be treated humanely. Anyone who resists will be stunned and restrained. You have 5 minutes to decide." The Karathi commander at Kestar, a veteran named Keslok, had never experienced anything like this. His ships were floating helplessly in space, completely at the mercy of the human attackers. But instead of killing his crews, the humans were offering them a chance to surrender safely. "This is impossible," Keslok muttered to his aide. "Humans do not have such weapons. They do not have such tactics." "Sir," his aide replied nervously, "perhaps they were not as weak as we believed." The boarding parties that came aboard the Karathi ships were a revelation. The human soldiers moved with mechanical precision, stunning anyone who showed aggression, but carefully avoiding unnecessary violence. They secured each ship systematically, treating wounded Karathi and ensuring that life support systems continued to function. Major Lim J led the ground assault on the shipyard itself. His troops landed on the station using transport pods that were invisible to Karathi sensors until the moment they attached to the hull. Within minutes, human soldiers were moving through the corridors of the facility. But instead of the brutal assault the Karathi military doctrine would have demanded, the humans executed a surgical operation. They disabled defensive systems, secured critical areas, and rounded up Karathi personnel with minimal violence. "Attention all Karathi workers," Major Lim announced over the station's communication system. "This facility is now under human control. Civilian workers should report to designated safe areas. You will not be harmed if you cooperate." The speed and efficiency of the human assault was staggering. While the main Karathi fleet was still mobilizing to defend their homeworld, humans had already captured or disabled 12 major military installations across their territory. At the Karathi home system, Supreme War Leader Hasek watched the reports coming in with growing disbelief. In 6 hours, the humans had crippled his military's ability to build new ships, repair damaged vessels, or resupply their fleets. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Where did these ships come from? How did they get past our sensor networks?" His intelligence chief, a scarred veteran named Taksar, studied the tactical displays with professional admiration. "Sir, it appears the humans have been planning this operation for decades. Their ships use technology we cannot detect. Their soldiers fight with precision we cannot match. Their strategy targets our weaknesses with perfect accuracy." "You sound as if you admire them," Hasek hissed dangerously. Sir, I admire any enemy who fights with such skill, Toxar replied honestly. But I fear we have made a terrible mistake. The humans we attacked at New Busan were not warriors. They were farmers and civilians. These humans are something entirely different. The main battle came 12 hours later, when the Korathi Grand Fleet finally engaged Admiral Song Mi's forces near the edge of their home system. It was the largest space battle in galactic history, with over 4,000 ships taking part, but it was not the battle anyone expected. The Korathi fleet advanced. In their traditional formation, massive dreadnoughts leading the way with smaller ships in support. They had numerical superiority and were fighting in their own territory. By every conventional measure, they should have won easily. The human fleet met them head-on, but their tactics were unlike anything the Korathi had faced before. Instead of trying to match the alien ships weapon for weapon, the humans used their superior speed and stealth to strike at critical targets. Captain Yang Su commanded the cruiser Hwarang as it led a squadron of destroyers against a Korathi battle group. Her ships moved like dancers, weaving between enemy fire while targeting specific systems on the alien vessels. Target their communications arrays first, Captain Yang ordered. Isolate their ships from each other, then hit their engines. Them sitting targets. The battle doctrine that humans had developed was based on 30 years of studying Korathi tactics. The aliens were aggressive fighters, but they relied heavily on coordinated attacks from their command ships. Cut off their communications, and their formations fell apart. One by one, Korathi ships found themselves blind, deaf, and unable to maneuver. The humans could have destroyed them easily, but instead, they used their electromagnetic weapons to disable them without killing their crews. Korathi vessel, this is Captain Yang Su. She transmitted to a disabled dreadnought. Your ship is helpless. Surrender now, and your crew will be spared. Continue fighting, and we will be forced to board you. A Korathi captain, a proud warrior, named Vatek, stared at his dead control panels in rage and confusion. You fight without honor, he transmitted back. Warriors should destroy their enemies, not capture them like prey animals. We fight to win, Captain Yang replied. And we win by being better than our enemies, not more brutal than them. The battle lasted 18 hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. The human fleet systematically dismantled the Korathi forces, ship by ship, squadron by squadron. By the end, over 3,000 Korathi vessels had been captured or disabled, while the humans had lost only 47 ships. Supreme War Leader Hazek found himself aboard Admiral Song Mi's flagship, a prisoner in his own home system. The human admiral was smaller than him, calmer than him, and completely in control of the situation. Your empire is finished, Song Mi told him simply. Your fleets are captured. Your shipyards are under our control. Your military power is broken. You have two choices now. Surrender completely, or watch us destroy every remaining Korathi installation in the galaxy. Hazek's anger was a living thing, filling the room with his hatred. You think you have one? The Korathi Empire has existed for centuries. We have survived every challenge, defeated every enemy. You cannot destroy us. We don't want to destroy you, Song Mi replied, her voice patient and reasonable. We want you to stop killing innocent people. We want you to understand that strength is not about dominating others. It's about protecting those who cannot protect themselves. She gestured to a holographic display showing the captured Korathi installations. Look at your people. We could have killed every one of them. Instead, we captured them safely. We treated their wounded, protected their civilian workers. Okay? This is what real strength looks like. Hazek stared at the images of his soldiers, being treated with respect and dignity by their human captors. It was incomprehensible to him. In Korathi culture, defeat meant death or slavery. But the humans were offering something different. 6 months after the Korathi surrender, President Choyan stood before the reformed Galactic Council in a chamber that looked very different from the one where humans had once been dismissed and ignored. The seating arrangement had changed. The rules had changed. Most importantly, the attitudes had changed. Where once the human delegation had occupied the smallest section of the chamber, they now sat at the center, not because they had demanded it, but because every other species had requested it. The galaxy had learned to listen when humans spoke. Friends and colleagues, President Cho began, her voice carrying easily through the silent chamber. 6 months ago, this council witnessed something that none of us wanted to see. War came to our galaxy because diplomacy failed. People died because we could not find a peaceful solution to our differences. Signed with an attention that would have been impossible before the war, the Bruthan delegate leaned forward instead of lounging arrogantly. The Nexari chimed softly in agreement rather than making dismissive sounds. Even the few remaining Karathi representatives sat quietly, their once proud bearing replaced by respectful attention. Today, I want to talk about what we have learned from that tragedy and what we can build together to ensure it never happens again. In the months following the war, humanity has surprised the galaxy once again. Instead of using their overwhelming military advantage to dominate other species, they had done something unprecedented. They had chosen to help their former enemies rebuild on the Karathi homeworld of Kesathera. Dr. Kung Yoon walked through the rebuilt medical center that had replaced the military command complex destroyed in the war. The facility was a joint project between human engineers and Karathi workers, designed to serve both species and any others who needed medical care. The blood pressure monitors are working perfectly, reported her assistant, a young Karathi named Sishara, who had learned to speak perfect human language in just 4 months. The new surgical equipment you brought from Earth is helping our doctors save lives they could never save before. Dr. Kong smiled as she watched human and Karathi medical staff working side by side. This is what we hoped to achieve, not conquest, but cooperation, not domination, but partnership. The transformation of Karathi society had been remarkable. Without their aggressive military culture, the Karathi people had discovered talents and interests they had never been allowed to explore. Sishara was one of thousands of young Karathi who had embraced this opportunity to learn from humans and contribute to their own society's rebuilding. Dr. Sishara said hesitantly, "May I ask you something? Why did your people help us after we hurt you so badly? Why did you not simply destroy us and take our worlds?" Dr. Kong paused in her work, considering the question that she had been asked many times in recent months. "Because we understand something that your old leaders did not. True strength is not about having the power to destroy your enemies. True strength is about having the power to make enemies into friends." Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. On the mining world of Zarian, Engineer Park Dong supervised the construction of new facilities that would serve both human and Nexari workers. The Nexari had initially been suspicious of human offers to help improve their mining operations, but the results spoke for themselves. The new extraction methods are increasing our output by 40%. The Nexar site supervisor chimed to Park Dong as they reviewed the daily reports, and the safety improvements have eliminated mining accidents completely. "That's the idea," Park Dong replied. "When everyone benefits, everyone wins. Your people get better working conditions and higher productivity. Humans get access to the rare minerals we need for our technology. Nobody has to fight or die for what they want." The Nexari had been among the first species to embrace the new human approach to galactic relations. Their crystalline nature made them natural engineers, and they had quickly adapted human technology to their own needs while contributing their own innovations to joint projects. Back in the council chamber, President Cho continued her address to the assembled representatives. "We have proven that cooperation is more powerful than conquest. In 6 months, we have built more, achieved more, and helped more people than this galaxy managed in the previous 6 years of constant conflict. She activated a holographic display showing statistics from across human space and the territories of their new allies. Trade was up 300%. Scientific research was advancing at unprecedented rates. Quality of life was improving for billions of people across dozens of worlds. The Karathi Empire is gone, President Cho said, but the Karathi people are thriving. They have discovered that their talents for organization and logistics, once used for war, can be even more effective when used for peace. In the audience, former Supreme War Leader Hazak sat with the Karathi delegation. His title had changed to Minister of Reconstruction, and his role had changed from planning conquests to planning hospitals and schools. The transformation had been difficult for him personally, but he could not argue with the results. Under human guidance, Karathi worlds were experiencing prosperity they had never known during the centuries of military rule. Their people were healthier, better educated, and happier than they had been when their entire society was focused on war and domination. We learned something important during our conflict, President Cho continued. We learned that the galaxy is not a place where the strong must prey on the weak. It is a place where different species with different abilities can work together to achieve things that none of us could accomplish alone. Teacher Yubin had seen this principle in action during her work on the educational exchange programs on the neutral world of Haven Station. She watched human children learning mathematics from Nexari instructors, while Karathi youngsters taught human students about engineering principles that their species understood instinctively. Learning is universal, Yubin often told her students. Intelligence takes many forms, but curiosity and a desire to understand are the same everywhere in the galaxy. The children who grew up in these mixed schools would be the first generation to see species differences as opportunities for learning rather than reasons for conflict. They would inherit a galaxy very different from the one their parents had. No, President Cho's speech was building toward his conclusion, and the chamber remained absolutely silent. Every representative understood that they were witnessing a moment that would define the future of galactic civilization. Some of you have asked why we chose mercy over vengeance, why we chose cooperation over domination, why we chose to build bridges instead of walls between our species. She paused, looking around the chamber at faces from dozens of different worlds, all listening with a respect and attention that had once been reserved only for the most powerful military commanders. The answer is simple. We had the power to rule through fear, but we chose to lead through example. We had the ability to take whatever we wanted, but we chose to create a system where everyone can have what they need. Ambassador Kim Jun, who had delivered humanity's original warnings years before, stood beside the president. His role had evolved from desperate diplomat to trusted advisor, helping other species navigate the new reality of galactic politics. 4 years. We warned you not to make us mad, Kim Jun said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. Today, I want to give you a different message. We invite you to make us proud. Show us that the galaxy can be better than it was. Show us that different species can work together for the benefit of everyone. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Every species in the chamber stood and expressed their agreement in their own way. The Bruthan rumbled their approval. The Nexari chimed in harmonious patterns. Karathi hissed softly in what their culture considered the highest form of respect. But the most important response came from the newest members of the council. 3 species that had only recently achieved spaceflight had been invited to join, even though they had no military power or significant resources to offer. They had been included because the new galactic order was based on potential and contribution, not strength and domination. The youngest representative, speaking for a species that had only discovered faster than light travel 6 months earlier, stood with obvious nervousness. We want to thank the humans for showing us that the galaxy is a place where small species can grow and thrive. We promise to contribute whatever we can to this new future you are building." President Cho smiled warmly. "Every species has something valuable to offer. Every world has something unique to contribute. Our job is to help each other discover what that is." Okay? As the session ended and representatives began to file out of the chamber, conversations that would have been impossible just months before were taking place. Karathi engineers discussed joint projects with Nexari crystallographers. Breathen miners planned resource-sharing agreements with human colonies. The galaxy was becoming something it had never been before, a true community. That evening, on the observation deck of the council station, Kim Jun stood looking out at the stars. The view was the same as it had been years ago when he had first delivered humanity's warnings to an unlistening galaxy, but everything else had changed.